upturning that dial. You've made it to Hold Up Radio, where the film star killed the radio star, but like the residents of Pontypool, we wouldn't stay dead. Tonight's theme is radio.
Hello and welcome to Hold Up, a movie podcast where I will go back to you pressing all the buttons on our intros from now on, like it's always been and should always be. And who am I?
Pull
I
that
am.
mic closer.
I am. Who, me?
Yeah, I can barely hear you.
I'm quiet, am I?
Yeah. Now you're the one that speaks softly.
What about
Just pull
now?
it closer to you.
Well, I'm pretty freaking close to it. Really? All right, hold on. I can make it go up. I find that surprising, though.
Oh,
what about now?
That's much better. Oh, that's much better.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm your host, Davan Skelhorn, and with me, as always, Chris Worldmind Murphy. We're talking radio.
We're on
Episode
the air.
3, Season 2. We have a guest, as we always do. But this time we have Patrick Walford. How's it going, Patrick?
Good. How's it going, guys? How was the past couple days worth of holidays and whatnot for you guys?
Oh, it was good till Murphy flubbed that intro.
I flubbed that intro so hard. I thought I was hitting the Christmas intro, but it was at the bottom of the little video package of intros that we have. Anyway, we're just gonna look past that. We're here on season 2, and much like the film reels and projectors, we're gonna keep on rolling and let the light pass through us and illuminate the picture that is the present. And we're gonna have ourselves a little chit chat about all things radio. This episode's been delayed through various means and methods, and I'm happy to say we're here now. And the holidays were good to me, and I'm hoping they were good to you guys.
Yeah, holidays were good. Babies had fun. It really matters. Happy babies, happy life, as they say. We have a segment on this show, don't we, Murphy?
It's true.
It comes
it's
up
true.
quite often, and it's called Origin Stories. So, Patrick, what's with you in movies?
Well, I mean, it's movies for me, at least like in terms of the kind of movies that I like and whatnot, are definitely. I'm more of like a comedy guy for sure. I would say I kind of dip here and there into the dramas and various other things. I would say mostly due in large part to my wife. Some of the cool movies and cool series that she likes to watch and whatnot, but I mean, especially, with one of the movies in mind having one of my personal favorite actors involved in it today, I'd have to say I'm definitely a Sandman to say the very least. Growing up, movies like Happy Gilmore, The Waterboy, Billy Madison, those are like, and still to this day are like my absolute favorites type deal. So, so definitely more in that part type deal. But I know, like, especially lately, there's been a lot of cool ones that I've been meaning to hopefully check out. I know The Iron Claw is like a must watch on my list. Not only because of the, it's about wrestling and kind of the story that it is and whatnot, but just it seems by all indications it's one of those movies where you go into it super excited and then you kind of realize that the Von Erichs and that entire family story is pretty tragic and pretty depressing. So I feel like it's one of those films that I need to like mentally prepare myself of what I'm about to go into for sure.
Yeah, that's an emotional sort of like heartbreak train wreck sort of journey, if you will, with that movie. Just a quick question for you, Patrick. What is your earliest movie memory? Like, what's one of the first movies you can remember seeing?
Oh, man. I know one of the earliest memories that I have, which is also happens to be a really funny story. I think this film would have came out when I was 4 or 5 years old. I was born in 1990, but the movie The Mask, I remember when my dad went and picked that up at the movie store. I was absolutely fucking terrified whenever Jim Carrey would turn into the mask, like hide underneath a blanket, like all that sort of stuff type deal. So that's definitely one that stands out for me. And ironically enough, also a Jim Carrey movie, the opening to Ace Ventura when he's smashing the box around.
I
Five,
love
six
that
of
scene.
me thought that was like the funniest shit that I had ever seen in my entire life.
39-year-old me thinks that's the funniest shit. I just watched that movie again this year. I love
Yeah,
that
man.
scene.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Well, we're talking radio here, fellas. I was actually going to go into radio, and I was job shadowing it in high school and stuff like that. I
Nice.
kind of got bummed out how pre-programmed it was and decided to go a different route. But like I wanted to be like an old school radio or pirate radio DJ where I got to play all the songs I wanted to play and that kind of thing. But that's not how it existed on FM radio back
Yeah.
in the early 2000s. So
Oh, I mean, it's still that way for sure, man. Like, luckily, the radio station that I work for, Adobe Radio, I've been working with them. It'll be 13 years in a couple days' time from when we're recording this. And I am not exaggerating to you. The entire 13 years, first off with my show Rock the Walls, which is the original reason why I was with Adobe Radio. Complete creative control, could play whatever I want, could interview whatever bands I want, like no restrictions whatsoever. And then now, years down the road here, 13 years type deal, for the past 6 years, I've been the music director for our heavy music station, Adobe Howl. And this is like the literal definition of choosing the shit that you think needs to be heard or should be heard. And one of the great things about it being online as well, and especially with it being more heavy music, there it's completely uncensored, so I don't have to worry about being able to play a song that has swear words in it or anything like that. But I think just like it was one of those things where I legitimately was about to wrap up college and I did my show Rock the Walls on college radio and I wanted to continue doing it, so I sent out a demo to the station, Adobe Radio. They gave me a 3-show trial run and kind of see how things ran from there, and I'm still with them, over a decade later type deal. But especially here in Canada, without mentioning any company names, I'll just refer to them as the Blue and the Red Company. Obviously, those are pretty clean, pretty, cloth cutting in terms of, what you're going to play and that kind of stuff. But also, like every single year, at least a couple times a year, they do the old spring or fall cleaning where they just lay off a bunch of employees so that their higher ups can hit their $1 million bonuses and all that sort of bullshit. So it's completely amazing to be a part of a radio station that is completely 100% independent. Doing our own thing, carving our own path. It's honestly really surreal to think that I'm still with them almost 13 years later, and I've been able to do the shit that I've been able to. Interviewing at this point, well over 2,000 bands and artists throughout the years and whatnot. Everyone from bands, like Cattle Decapitation, Cannibal Corpse, to bands, like In Flames. Some of the more current bigger bands like Bad Omens, I Prevail, all that sort of stuff. Even like legends like Dragon Force and that sort of shit. It's just been it's been an absolutely unreal ride, and I think looking back on stuff, it's been pretty cool to know that I forged my own path and was able to do things on my terms as opposed to have to go on an FM radio station and pretend to fucking like songs that absolutely suck shit. So
Well, it's that 13 years experience that is why I wanted you to be on this particular episode of our little movie podcast. I knew once we were going to do a radio theme episode, you were the first guest that came to mind. I was like, I have to have Patrick on. We have to watch a movie of his choice, and I loved your choice of movie. which is the first movie we're going to be talking about over in Theater One.
Which company did you eat, the red one or the blue one?
So I actually
You gotta eat one of them.
Yeah, I worked for the blue one for a little bit, and all the people that worked there were absolutely awesome, great people, best people you could ever meet and whatnot. So I guess by default I would have to eat the red one.
Fair enough. All right, but here in Theater One, Airheads from 1994, starring Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, the Sandman Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, R.I.P., Michael McKean, and Joe Mantegna. A Legends Row there. Directed by Michael Lehman. Yeah, just a murderer's row there. Good stuff. All right, so you got a trailer for us there,
I
Murphy?
do have a trailer for us. Let's
let's
refresh
check
our
it
brains,
out.
shall we?
I can't take that tape from you. If it's unsolicited, I can't touch it.
It's not easy to break into the music business, but these three guys
What's your secret code?
I can't tell you my code.
just found a way.
You guys are a unsigned band, and you broke into the radio station to get your demo played on the air?
I just feel a little goofy with a water pistol.
They don't know it's a water pistol. They think it's real.
Can you guys see the video? Or it's just a frozen.
Look, all I want to do is be heard, and then we're out of here.
Okay, who are you guys?
My name's Pip.
The band. The band name.
Sorry about that. Oh man, look, the demo's wasted! Well, what are we gonna...
What's going on there?
Sorry, apparently my computer is just being absolutely laggy and is not playing the video. I apologize for that.
Well, whatever. We don't need the trailer. So,
yeah.
all
right, well,
so
anyway.
we're gonna try things a little differently here in this episode, and funny enough, you're gonna have to go first, Patrick, in my new little experiment. So, basically, rather than we used to go scene by scene breakdowns, and who knows, maybe we'll go back to that. But it took a long time, and we'd be doing 3-hour podcasts. So now we're gonna do things a little differently, and I'm gonna ask you about Airheads. I'm gonna ask you how it began, like the first act, what happened in the middle, second act, and how it ended, sort of thing. Just kind of give me a description of each. And well, why don't we just start with how did Airheads begin?
Well, we have, of course, with them being in Los Angeles, the tried old true story of, a band or an artist just trying to break through various means. And, obviously in the mid 90s, getting your shit played on the radio or MTV or anything like that was like the quote unquote biggest thing ever. So, as we kind of see, with Brendan Fraser and whatnot, his character Chaz, he tries going into record labels to try to, slip demos here and there and all that kind of stuff. It's obviously a pretty far cry of what would happen, in current day and time and type deal. And then they decided with their fake toy guns, from Pip, the toy store that he works at and whatnot, that he is, they're going to go into this radio station and stick it up so they can have their song played on the radio to the masses out in Los Angeles and whatnot. So it's pretty funny. And then obviously, the middle sort of part, everyone in the radio station.
Let me stop you there in the beginning for a second.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest about those fellas. Not the sharpest knives in the drawers. They really need to make this music thing work. So,
yeah.
This movie's called Airheads for a reason.
Yeah, definitely. Just your stereotypical, metal kind of rock playing dudes who the only kind of thing that they know is kind of rock or metal music. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They tried talking to what's his name, Judd Nelson, like the record label guy. He's like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't take this. This is solicited. If it's unsolicited, I can't take this.
Yeah.
But there's some reality to this, silly movie, and getting your stuff played for the first time, getting that initial kind of break is the hardest part.
For sure. And I think that's one of the cool things with what I'm able to do, along with playing, music from, bands that are signed to, these pretty big major indie, metal labels, labels like Metal Blade, Century Media, Nuclear Blast, and so on. I as well, completely open floor as far as if unsigned bands want to send me music to, play it in our rotation and whatnot. We have a category called Fresh Riffs for, awesome up and coming bands and whatnot. And definitely, I in no way take credit for this. I know a lot of other people would, but, I've had a pretty good track record in terms of, being the first person to play a band or play an artist type deal. And then they go on to do some pretty big and pretty cool things. But, it's completely open book. There's times weeks when I'm doing music ads where I will legitimately be the person hitting up these unsigned bands being like, hey, your new song fucking rules. Definitely send it in type deal, and we'll play it for sure type deal. But as far as that goes, and like terrestrial radio and that kind of stuff, even to this very day, unsigned bands, independent bands getting their music played, that's like definite pulling sort of teeth sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you really need to get in the rotation too. Like what they're trying to do here is just get them to play the song once. And it's just like, maybe that's not worth all this gun stuff, fellas. Like just this one play on the radio, like this obscure time of day by the time you get through them. But like, yeah, like the radio guy played by Joe Mantegna. Love him. He's my favorite character.
Ian's one of my favorite characters in the whole film.
Well, it's funny, too, because I completely, having not watched the movie for a couple of years, completely forgot that he was the radio DJ. And what I had watched most recently that he was in was Criminal Minds. So I'm just like, thinking of him in Criminal Minds type deal, while I'm watching this back through for the first time in a little bit. And just absolutely awesome and funny stuff for sure. He plays like that, that kind of like over the top rock radio DJ to like an absolute T for sure.
But he's also playing what we just described about like the reason I kind of got out of radio and like how you're happy to be doing it the way you're doing it. It's like he's that guy who can't play the songs he wants to play anymore. And he just like hates his job, hates his boss, hates his life. He's just like
Ironically, I've also been watching Frasier, and he appears in an early episode of Frasier as a radio DJ of his own that ends up trying to fight Frasier. He doesn't appear on screen, but it's his voice the whole time, and I thought it was quite funny to like see him in that after watching Airheads again for like admittedly the 15th time, give or take. I'm a big fan of this film.
Yeah, I've seen it a million times too. I loved it as a young lad. But I was 10 when this came out, so I was pretty much at the age to be their demographic. So what happens in Act 2? What happens in the middle of this movie, Patrick?
So I mean,
wait, hold on one sec. Hey Murphy, is your computer good enough to play the favorite scenes?
I'm hoping. I believe
fire up
one of
mine
your
because it
favorite
happens
scenes
in
was
the beginning.
this happens in the first act.
Oh, I think we're busted.
Oh yeah, now this plays fine.
Oh, it's working.
No, get these guys out of here. Are we still in the air?
Listen, Milo, I get 6 minutes of talk time every hour. What do you care how I spend them?
Get these morons off the air. I'm warning you, Ian.
Ease up, Grumpy. Somebody gave you a break once. Even though you're a goon.
I say we make this an open forum. Let's hear the man out. Go ahead, Conan. Explain to Milo why we should pay your tape.
Look, I'm not pulling putt here, all right?
It's ironic because he was cast to be Conan one time.
I don't know what else to say. Come on, man. Can you just give us a shot?
How can you say no to that?
It's puppy dog eyes. Come on.
You're not untouchable. You think you are, but you're not.
Get out of my booth. Without me, you don't have any ratings.
No, we'll see about that. Let's go out, all you losers.
Hey, get your hands off me, Jackson.
Want to try getting physical with me?
Listen, you shaved ape. I could make a phone call and have you picking up garbage on the freeway for the rest of the decade. You want to get smart with me? Try it. I will not be pushed around by Hollywood Boulevard trash like you.
I'm trash.
What do you think, you're better than me?
Oh,
Oops, got a gun!
that's all it took. Lost his
Hey,
shit.
stop squirming, pussy!
I'll fill your face.
But yeah, you can cut that. Yeah, that. I mean, it may not seem like the greatest scene in that movie, but the line that I've that has stuck with me my whole life and that I say a lot is that like, you want to try getting physical with me? That made me laugh my ass off. And it always does because he's like the tiniest guy. Like Brendan Fraser's like a giant. And like, but there's like this tiny guy steps up and just like, hey man, you want to try getting physical with me? Like he's like supposed to be intimidating. Like everyone's supposed to know he's this very intimidating guy. I don't know.
He's the smallest guy in the room.
Hilarious. Yeah, he's the smallest guy in the room. But yeah, I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know why things are glitching out on me. Normally things move a lot smoother over here at Hold Up. We usually have visual operations, but for whatever reasons, my computer is just struggling.
All right, what happens in the middle of this movie?
So basically, obviously, as towards the end of that scene, we see, the guns come out. Then they hold everyone in the radio station hostage. Because they think they're real guns, but they're toy guns type deal. And basically from there, they've realized.
Oh my God! Sorry, that picture. I just got to interrupt you for 1 sec. Go back 2 pictures.
Okay.
Yeah, that guy is hilarious. He's like one of the other favorite line of mine in this movie is, "You want to take a step back? You're stepping on my dick." Like that's one of the best lines in like the history of cinema, probably. But anyway, continue.
And then throughout all of that of them being hostages and whatnot, they basically find out that Sunday, I believe it's Sunday or Monday at midnight, that KPPX Rebel Radio is going to turn into a soft rock radio station, The Rain, which obviously pisses Ian off because he knows he no longer has a job and whatnot. But then as well, throughout this, the cops are outside at this point as well, and they basically figure out that they can give all these crazy demands, and the cops are going to film because they don't want anyone to die type deal. So some of the requests, obviously getting played on the radio, to getting like record executives down there, to just a whole bunch of other slew of just pretty crazy stuff and whatnot. But there's definitely, obviously if this movie is set in current day and time, there's so many different ways that the people at work there could have alerted the authorities and type deal and stuff like that. But then as well,
Airheads describes everybody in this movie. The cops are stupid. The employees of the radio station are stupid. The band is stupid.
And
it's a pretty funny title.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, as well, something that when I first seen pop in the movie, I was like, oh shit, I forgot that he was in there. Michael Richards. And him hiding in the vents and whatnot, and then eventually the one cop giving him a gun, and then as we'll talk about the final part about it, kind of whose hands those guns might fall into and whatnot. But there's also a part in the middle of this too, that would be my favorite scene. With Chris Farley in the way that just Chris Farley is just an absolute legend type deal, but as well, White Zombie playing in the bar and whatnot, just absolutely classic type deal. So always a sucker for a funny Chris Farley moment, to say the very least.
Why?
Man, none of our videos are working tonight, apparently. Try it again, Murphy.
I can't. Oh God.
Oh, he's gone. Well, anyway, Farley's it up in this movie for sure. He doesn't have a lot of lines or anything, but he's worthy of a title. On the credits scrolling at the bottom here for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And also another funny moment. I mean, it's more, I guess it would more so be towards the first act, but something I immediately picked up. Dude's name absolutely escapes me, but the guy who's initially the cop when Adam Sandler character walks outside and he's mimicking his every move. Well, only a year later, that police officer would be Adam Sandler's caddy in Happy Gilmore. And obviously people might also know him from, another cult classic like Grandma's Boy and stuff like that.
Grandma's Boy's great. I love that movie.
Yeah, man, that's an all-timer for sure.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was him. That's funny. But yeah, that's a weird scene too, where he's just mimicking him, and it's like, what is happening here? It's like he's trying to like hypnotize him. Like,
yeah, definitely. It's also funny too, looking back on it now, nearly 30 years ago, how like if your band got played on the radio or your music video got played on MTV, that was like the definition of making it back in the day. Like that was the biggest possible thing. If you saw a band on, here in Canada on Much Music or MTV, or heard them on the radio, or, maybe for us, like hearing them on a video game soundtrack in like the late 90s, early 2000s, that always felt like the biggest thing. So I feel like for me, for a while, interviewing bands, there was a lot of bands where I'm like, holy fuck, like I remember hearing this band for the first time in like an NHL or a Madden game. Like this is like unreal type deal. So it's pretty crazy how times have changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, we might have.
I think I got this
your
figured
scene
out.
here.
I'm gonna need to take you in. Look, Chance says you've got a tape. Please.
Hey, check out Barney Fife.
Barney Fife.
Look, you think you're out of your league, chunk style? Look, I don't want to have to bring you boys in on a 148. That's obstruction.
Ow.
Now, what are you going to do about that? Improvise.
That's what she says to me.
He was only cleaning.
He's just that character he plays. He's basically playing Tommy Boy. He's the character he plays is pretty much the character he plays and everything. But it's great.
Yeah, never gets old.
Miss the Farley. Also, words of advice: improvise. Like
Yep.
Taking you in on a 148 instruction. That's pretty.
That kind of also leads to what would be my favorite scene, because they're basically happening sort of co in tail. A story, B story. Farley was obviously looking for the girl, and she had the tape and all that stuff. And while that was happening, the cops were sort of knocking on the door of the band, trying to get their attention so that they could sign a deal while they were waiting for their record contracts to come in. But it turns out to be a red herring, and also the second appearance of the second Ghostbuster to show up in this film.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully this will work.
You guys are looking for a record contract.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, we got Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis showing up.
There's something going on here we got to take immediate advantage of, guys. Come on, let's talk, huh?
Yeah, what's that?
What's that? Will you look? This is hot.
This
You
is
guys
a
are
great
the hottest
scene,
thing since
actually.
Marky
This is a good
Mark and the
pick,
Funky Bunch.
Marky Mark, man, that guy sucks.
Okay, forget Marky Mark. There's magic out here, guys. Let's talk contracts.
There's
I
magic
promise you
out here,
someday
guys.
we're going to be
Come on.
backstage at the forum laughing about this.
All right, let me ask you a question. What side you taking the big David Lee Roth Van Halen split?
What do you mean?
What kind of question is that? What side did you take?
What kind of
Halen or
question's
Roth?
that?
Van Halen.
He's a cop.
Oh, Strictly left the group. Come on, one more question. Hey, come on, cheers, one more.
Right. Who'd win in a wrestling match, Lemmy or God?
Lemmy. God.
Wrong, dickhead. Trick question. Lemmy is God.
That's actually a meme. I see that meme around about like Lemmy.
Yeah, and he actually, I can put another thing completely forgot about. He makes a brief cameo in this movie as well, which is really awesome.
Yeah, in the about the third act where they
Cop.
tend to the cops try to like razz on Chaz because they find out that his real name's Chester. He was a part of the Chess Club, and then everyone's like, "I used to be a nerd too. I played D&D," and then like Lemmy comes out and he's like, "What do you say? I played Magic the Gathering." Something to that degree.
Another guy.
Man, like
I used to
90% of
masturbate every
musicians
day.
were nerds. That's why they started playing guitar. They weren't going to get girls any other way. Like that's just
true.
the path. That is the path.
Yeah.
But
I've worn quite a few.
all right,
leather jackets.
how does this movie end, Patrick?
Well, eventually, the guys they go up to with their various demands and whatnot. They go to the rooftop of the radio station, and there's like fucking fireworks, all this random shit going off, and then they decide, you wonder what? Fuck this, we're not gonna play. We're just gonna smash the shit out of these instruments. We're basically going to jail either way, and then it ends with them, getting that record contract. There's also another record exec that comes in and whatnot. The same guy that earlier on in the film basically denied Chaz, being able to give his demo because no unsolicited stuff type deal. And then we cut to a scene of them playing in prison and whatnot. All of the prisoners sitting down, kind of rocking out as best they could when they sit down. And then you see the very end where it says they served 3 months for kidnapping, theft and assault with hot pepper sauce, and that their album Live in Prison went triple platinum. Just absolutely funny too. And then there's that part too where where Adam Sandler's character is saying to Steve Buscemi, like, hey man, like what the hell are you doing? When he's like kind of humping his face, and it, like just so funny, so classic type deal. It's a shame too, because obviously I didn't really see this movie when I was 3 or 4 years old, but hearing about how at the box office this film was more or less a complete flop. I think it was in theaters for about 2-ish weeks, made about $11 million, and then they just completely took it off type deal. But I feel like this film
was on TV all the time.
Exactly, yeah.
It was on TV. TMN played it 100%. All the time. In that jail scene at the end, I really like it. It's a nod to my favorite music movie, Blues Brothers.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, just a great film to revisit, to say the very least. Just one of those gems that as somebody who's a bit of a Sandman, I was like, damn, sometimes I forget about this one. So definitely a great one for sure.
Excellent pick.
I enjoyed the rewatch. It was pretty nostalgic for me too. So I have my nostalgia glasses on when it comes to that movie. Yeah. But we ask around here on this show, which performance would you hold up?
Hold up in which sense? Hold up as in like this is really good, or hold up as in like I'm holding you up because this is fucking criminal as terrible as this?
No, really good.
The best performance.
Oh man, that's hard. I'd have to say Joe and his portrayal of Ian. I feel like that's like a perfect portrayal of like the 90s like rock radio DJ type deal. I definitely think he takes a cake for sure.
Yeah. Seconded. I choose Joe Mantegna as well.
I would. I've
always loved that character.
I would third that, but I'm also gonna give it to Brendan Fraser because Brendan Fraser
carries the movie.
Is it Fraser or is it
Fraser?
Fraser.
It's
yeah,
Fraser.
It's Fraser.
Fraser.
So yeah, Brendan Fraser, his portrayal and throughout the whole movie is believable, heartfelt. He literally is like one of the driving forces of the whole thing. He does the
top tier actor.
Amazing.
There's a reason he took off after this movie. Like this was his second big movie, but he took off after this one. After this, it's The Mummy and Superstar.
I also want to give it up to Adam Sandler because his portrayal of
what's his name, like Pip or something they call him?
No, it's not Pip. Is it Pip? Yeah, it is Pip. Yeah, it's the drummer Pip. His portrayal of Pip is entertaining. I remember a joke as a kid that I didn't get until I was much older, and that's when he was like in the van and they were driving in the van, and they talk about one of their friends and how one of their friends gave their iguana like so many bong hits, and I never got that joke as a kid because I was like, what the hell is a bong? I get that joke now, I tell you what.
The setting aesthetic. How did this movie look for you guys?
It's LA, baby. LA in the
90s. It looked good to me.
100%.
Like it holds up.
It had a bit, I mean, it's a bit, played up and everything, but it has like a realistic look to it too. The station looks like a radio station.
It's because it is.
It is.
Yeah. It's actually funny too because they go to, I believe, the venue that White Zombie is playing, and they refer to, if it isn't, they refer to this venue a couple times in the movie Whiskey a Go Go. So one of my fellow co-workers at Adobe Radio, his name is Mike Fishkin, but he goes by Fish. He very regularly DJs at a bar called On the Rocks, which is basically where Whiskey a Go Go is type deal. So it's I was in LA about 2.5 months ago. And to see that and know how legendary it is and whatnot, I thought it was pretty cool for sure.
Interesting. And since I have an X-Men podcast, I kind of hope that's a nod to the place where the X-Men, when they were the young X-Men in the 60s, used to have coffee. And that was at the Coffee a Go-Go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely.
So that would be nice. Like a little X-Men nod. All right. Murphy, hit us with some morsels.
All right, so movie morsels for the film Airheads from 1994. The Lone Rangers' hit single "Degenerated" is actually a song by 1980s punk group Reagan Youth, which is not as good. I listened to it. It's good, but it's not as good. I don't know. Maybe my nostalgia is taking over, but I prefer the film version of that song.
Yeah.
Nostalgia is what you have after you shave.
It's true. The death metal band Cannibal Corpse was originally set to play in the movie, but when the producers found they played in Ace Ventura's Pet Detective in '94, they were Jim Carrey's favorite band at the time. The producers opted for White Zombie. Testament was one of the bands considered for the performance at the Whiskey, but they had to bow out due to conflicting schedules. And at the time of the film's release, John Tempesta, was the drummer of Testament and later went on to replace Phil Burstate in White Zombie, staying in the band until their breakup in 1998. The line "Great, Grand, Wonderful" uttered by Chris Farley is the same once uttered in Billy Madison in '95. KPPX 103.3 Rebel Radio is based on the Long Beach radio station KNAC 105.5 Pure Rock, which went off the air 6 months after this movie arrived in theaters. Like KPPX, KNAC had a hard rock heavy metal format and even used "If it's too loud, you're too old," which is said by Ian at one point as a slogan. Ironically, this movie was released around the same time the staff at KNAC announced that the radio station was going to change formats. KNAC went off the air on February 15th, 1995, and was replaced by the Spanish language station KBUE, or Que Buena. Anyway, when Ian plays "London" by Anthrax on the radio, he tells Milo, "If it's too loud, you're too old." This line is a reference to the famous slogan by Ernie Anderson, who was the main promotion voice of the American Broadcasting Company from the late 70s to the mid-90s. Rex gives Ian a CD and tells him to play track 2, which is "I'm the One" by Van Halen, performed by Four Non-Blondes, the same song as track 2 on the Airheads' original soundtrack. Christina Applegate was considered for the role of Kayla. And when Chaz drags one
she
of the
kind of looks like Christina Applegate.
Yeah, they felt like they very much had Christina Applegate in mind, and they didn't get her, so they just went for Wish Christina Applegate.
Christina B.
yeah.
Christina Peargate.
Yeah, there you go. When Chaz drags one of the employees of KPPX out of his office, you can see a poster of a white skeleton on a black background, which is identical to the cover of The Offspring's multi-platinum album Smash, released 4 months before this movie arrived in theaters. The members of the band Sons of Thunder, Monty Calivan, Alan Doss, Ben Huggins, and Michael Dane Sanier, are actually members of another group called the Galactic Cowboys. And when they release Yvonne, Chaz says, "Go, Yvonne, you'll be home in time for The Simpsons," on which Joe Mantegna plays Fat Tony. Cinematography by John Schwartzman. Samoyda. Edited by Steven Semel. Music by Carter Burwell. Production companies Island World. Robert Simmons Productions. A release date of August 5th, 1994, with a runtime of 92 minutes. This budgeted film had $11.2 million, and the box office was $5.8. So was not a hit in theaters, but is a cult classic in the hearts of everyone in their 30s.
Well, let's talk about its rewatchability then. I actually think this one, again, nostalgia for me. I was 10 when it came out, but pretty high in the rewatchability, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. 100% agree.
I've watched this film probably 15 times. It's one of my top 5 films, and I watch it often. Love it to death.
Yeah,
it's pretty high up on comedies for me, and not because it's the funniest, because it's not the funniest comedy. But it's just a good, enjoyable movie. Puts a smile on your face. But,
yeah, I agree.
And so I think we're all agreed here, but does it hold up?
I think so.
Absolutely.
I think so.
Even Tally agrees.
Well, we have an A movie kicking off the night. Interesting. Now, I don't know if we're going to follow up with one. All right. So, in Theater 2, we have Radioland Murders, also from 1994. the year of radio movies, starring Brian Benben, Mary Stuart Masterson, Scott Michael Campbell, George Burns himself, and Ned Beatty, directed by Mel Smith. Is you even going to try a trailer here, Murphy?
Yes, I'm gonna try a trailer here. What do you mean?
You walked away. I thought you were giving up on life.
No, I was not. I was getting myself a Flying Monkey Crowd Surf Motel, which we're not sponsored by, but hopefully one day.
We better get something for that. That was a blatant sponsorship.
I only get deliciousness. I chose this movie because of good times.
Cue the band.
Get this to the actors.
I wish that's what I had.
One fateful evening in 1939.
40 seconds to air.
I hate opening nights. A brand new network
15 seconds!
was making its nationwide debut.
Cue Dexter.
Hello, America! We've got a show, people.
When suddenly,
There will be no dead air on this network.
the drama came off the air.
Not enjoy the
Our living
performances of
rooms.
this film.
I have a bad feeling about this.
As millions of listeners became witnesses to
I would
murder.
put those two words together like that.
Call the police. I want a cop stationed at every exit of the studio.
Now, the cast and crew of WBN
It's him. The killer. Shoot to kill.
have to control the chaos.
I don't know what you know that I know, but I do know that you don't know what you think you know.
Oh, no!
Prove their innocence.
Come on, kids, spill the beans.
Are you completely out of your mind?
I didn't kill anybody, but I'm very close to figuring out who did.
And keep from becoming the killer's next victim.
Nobody else died in Radioland tonight.
Nobody enters my dressing room uninvited. What the hell do you think that star means?
You're Jewish?
Universal Pictures and George Lucas invite you to exercise your imagination
Easy for you to say.
in a funny,
Do the organ.
magical, musical mystery.
I've got it. Is it contagious?
Radioland Murders, starring Mary Stuart Masterson, Brian Benben, Ned Beatty, Michael McKean, and Christopher Lloyd.
He's dying in there. We gotta break the glass. Use your gun. Right.
Radioland Murders, directed by Mel Smith.
Listen, it's not a Lucasfilms classic, but it's a dear film in my heart that I remember just back in the day when I was a kid flipping through the channels. I came across this on Bravo or Showcase, I believe it was one of the two. And I watched it, and I thought that it was just a charming, entertaining film, especially with Brian Benben, who, you know, had a wonderful little show whose name I always kind of forget. Cause
Dream
I
On. I used to watch Dream
You
On
always
all the
remember.
time.
Yeah, Dream On. You always
Yeah, because I watched the shit out of it, and I shouldn't have. I was too young to watch Dream On. But
the dream sequences, they were
Look,
great.
For
all the right
I think the
reasons.
connection. This movie should have landed for me, but it didn't. I love the setting.
Was he not tall enough?
I should love the setting. Give it a rest, everybody. I'm not the only person in the world who wants a short Wolverine. All right.
For me, it's a movie where like it takes me back to a really funny memory in college, and I didn't think I would ever be able to tell this story to anyone, but this actually happens to be the perfect instance. So in my second year of broadcasting school, we were basically in this like audio class where they wanted us to create like basically a radio like an audio sort of play, or you know, sort of
play,
thing. Yeah, like an audio play type deal, I guess, for lack of a better term at current moment. And myself and two of my classmates, Chris and Ken, we decided that we were going to do one where basically it's a radio station, and unfortunately this guy does not shut off his microphone, and a woman from the radio station that he may or may not have had a relationship with before comes in while the microphone is still on, and more or less by the end of it they start having ridiculous sex, which
Dream On scenario.
which, bless her soul, one of our other classmates decided that she would do that part, and I can remember us playing that in front of our teacher. I think they got a bit halfway through it, and they're just like, okay, we get the point. Like, this is it type deal. I think we got like a 50 or a 60 on it, more so because we completed what was asked, but I don't think it was necessarily class appropriate. So our teacher was kind of pissed at us, but it was still pretty funny to see the reaction of all my classmates and shit, just being like, yo, what the fuck did you guys do? Seriously.
Sounds as good as this movie was.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it should have landed more. I like the setting. I like a lot of these actors. I mean, Christopher Lloyd is in this movie, but again, it's a waste of Christopher Lloyd, I find. Like, he doesn't do a whole lot. He doesn't say anything.
I feel like it's a movie too where, like, in a more recent kind of usage of it, I feel like the TV show Only Murders in the Building largely borrows from a lot of this. I know there's kind of the same sort of plot premises in certain seasons and whatnot, but that's like the first thing I thought of when I, seen this movie for the first time type deal.
Well, I think the connective tissue for me and why it didn't land is the George Lucas. Like, I love space movies, but I don't like Star Wars. I love old-timey radio settings, but I didn't love this movie. George Lucas usually doesn't land for me. Like, there's a disconnect there. What he thinks is entertaining is not what I think is entertaining. And this seems to be another case of that.
That's fair. Well, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was. I'm not to say it's like the best movie we watched, but it was entertaining enough that I could watch it till the end in one go. Apparently, you took.
I didn't make it in one go.
Yeah,
Brian Ben is also like, I like Brian Ben. I watched Eamon, but he's hard. But the character he plays is hard to care about because he plays such a smarmy bastard all the time. It's like
he doesn't play likable leads.
Character. No, he doesn't.
He doesn't play likable leads at all.
So I thought that would be more approachable too because of the Dream On thing. But yeah, I don't know. This movie fell flat for me.
Well, yeah, so basically the start of this movie, it's focuses around Brian Benben's character, Roger Henderson, and his wife, Penny Henderson, who's played by Mary Stuart Masterson. He's the writer, she's basically the producer's assistant.
She's kind of charming in this.
She is very charming in this. And we've got Stephen Tobolowsky, who plays Max Applewhite. He's basically the producer. He's the guy like running things and telling people what to do and stuff like that. This was not the first movie I watched him in the past 4 weeks because I had to go home for Christmas for 10 days. My mother watched Hallmark movies. He showed up in 3 Hallmark movies.
Holy shit.
3 Hallmark Christmas movies. I was just like, how many times am I going to see
He probably
Steven?
lives in Vancouver.
He does. I bet you he does. Anyway, yeah, so this film, it basically centers around Brian being the writer, getting these scripts up to production while they're putting on a live radio show where the lead composer is played by Michael McKean, who was in our previous film playing the radio CEO or whatever, manager.
He plays like the perfect asshole in like any single movie. He's just like the perfect kind of asshole villain kind of guy.
Yeah, he's
but I always
spot
like
on for that stuff.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
And then we get a returning Ned Beatty to play the General Walt Whalen, who's basically the radio manager. He's trying to convince all these donors that have come to watch the show to invest in his radio station because it's basically his radio station and 3 other big radio stations that are up for syndication. And he's here to prove that his show is the best. So last time we saw Ned Beatty was during, what was it?
Network.
Network, yes, and he played that awesome role as the
That
chair
was a
of
great
the TV
scene.
station. Such a good scene. So it was fun to watch him, run around. And then
There's callbacks to that movie. The main producer guy was also named Max in Network.
Oh yeah, yes, he was, wasn't he?
They're making a lot of callbacks to Network in this, I think, on purpose.
Yeah,
and,
this is not as good as Network. Network was a way better movie. But,
and if I don't know if anyone here's watched The Fifth Element, but we had Breon James.
Everyone's seen The Fifth Element.
I
said everyone has seen The Fifth Element.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you haven't seen it, and my brain glitched
No, I've
out
seen
there.
The Fifth Element like 45 times.
So yeah, Breon James he's the general in The Fifth Element that's always like on Bruce Willis's character. He plays like the super rich, I own everything guy that ultimately gets like gas out. Anyway, so all these people are going through it. It starts off with a trumpet player seemingly have a heart attack, but he is actually poisoned, and then we start getting these sort of radio interjections from a mysterious voice giving poetry and clues as to who he's going to kill next. And within, roughly 5 minutes apart, they start dropping like flies. We lose the trumpet player, and then we lose, I believe, was Jeffrey Tambor's character, Walt Wayland Jr. He ends up being caught hanging, I believe, by Roger and Penny. Yeah, sorry. I'm just trying to remember if it was. I believe this is the point where it's my favorite scene. I'm just trying to remember which one's first. Yeah, it's about this point, I believe. So the cops start coming into the station, and they start sort of whittling down who their suspects are, believe. And right now, their main suspect is Roger. Because he happens to have the flask with the poison that killed the trumpet player. He happens to have the knife that Walt Wayland Jr. carried on him.
The motive?
It's not looking good. Yeah, he's got some motive. It's not looking good.
My favorite scene, is it?
Is yours, or I guess yours is technically 35 minutes in, isn't it? Mine's a little after. So yeah, your favorite scene would be about here. It's before mine. Give me a second to pull this up. Technology, she's slow.
It was hard for me to pick a favorite scene first. I was just going to pick the musical interlude by Michael McKean when he's like ding 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 ding, because at least it just distracted me from this movie for a minute.
I did have that.
I kind of went with this scene.
Yeah, you went with this scene instead. Technology, don't be bum. I had this loaded, but everything crashed on me, so I'm just reloading it. Okay, here we go. This should be it.
Deja vu. Oh, look, this is all very explainable, okay? I was running by when they were carrying Ruffles' body off the stage, and he happened to drop his flask on my script, and I just picked it up.
I don't suppose you still have it.
No, of course not. Why would I still have it? Right here in my pocket, where in all the confusion, I forgot that I put it. Careful. It might have fingerprints on it. Fingerprints? Of course they're fingerprints. My fingerprints. I'm holding it, you idiot. Give me that.
Well. Roger's a regular Johnny on the spot. Placed to the scene of Wayland's death, and now he has the poison. He killed poor Ruffles.
Hey!
Oh, pipe down, Dexter. Roger may be a lot of things, but he's not a murderer.
She's right. I'm not even a lot of things.
I said, shut up and sit down. Seem to know him pretty well for a secretary.
Well, I'm his wife, too. Ex-wife. Well, soon to be ex-wife. We're getting divorced.
How come?
I couldn't trust him. He lies. Not big lies. One.
Just really throwing him
He never lied about killing anyone.
Yeah.
I'll remember you when I need a character witness.
Isn't that what's referred to in police jargon as a lead?
Oh, put a sock in it, Dexter. I happen to know that you had a fist fight with Junior just before he was killed.
Uh-huh. Guess that makes you what we refer to in police jargon as a suspect.
Now you're talking. Shut up. And sit down, I know.
Stay put, Mr. Morris. We like to ask our suspect a few questions. Don't wander too far, Shakespeare.
Don't wander too far, Shakespeare. Yeah. I got a kick out of those cops, and I find it funny that he calls him Shakespeare just because he's a writer. I think you're so smart, Shakespeare. Like, yeah, and the whole her throwing him under the bus thing was pretty fun.
I also liked
Not
in the
big
writers'
lies,
room.
just the little.
I also liked in the writers' room how they would occasionally jump into that, and we had Bobcat Goldthwait, who's like seemingly like it seemed like he was a janitor, but I guess he was also a writer. But they also had I don't have the actress's name up at the moment, but she was the actual like maid or janitor in the writing room, and she would always come up with these like killer little lines that would always you could tell like she was the writer, and they would just like, oh, that's a great one, and they would just run off whatever she said. Oh, dude, I can't even find her name. I feel bad about that. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, basically, we start getting this like back and forth between the writers' room, like getting scripts, and the murdering happening, and the cops trying to figure out if it's actually Brian Benben's character. You get all these sort of like fun little live stage scenes of little shows and stuff like that, but then the scripts start getting mixed up, which we eventually, I believe this was one of Pat's scenes. And Pat, I just kind of want to get your thoughts and feelings on this film up to this point. What would you say about it so far?
I feel like when I was watching this, because I had never seen it in around when it came out or in my entire life. It's one of those films that the only way I can describe it is like, it is pure 90s, just in the sense of like, in the early 90s when they used to like have all those movies that took place in like 30s or 40s. And it's kind of like, obviously this being a Lucasfilm, kind of like grandiose and like over the top to like really put in your mind that it's like the 30s or the 40s type deal.
Very love letter.
Yeah.
We've covered them on this show. I feel like George Lucas wanted to make Matinee and failed, because Matinee is a great freaking movie.
Yeah.
This one's not.
Yeah, definitely. It also kind of made me laugh just in the fact that, like, now obviously current day and time and, nearly 100 years later into what this was set, I'm one dude doing all of these different radio jobs where obviously back in the day, it's like, it was as big as a fucking TV or movie production to put on a radio production in terms of having like, the big kind of like bandstand sort of factor, and then having all the live actors, the live audience, all that sort of stuff. It's just like
great setting.
Yeah, great setting for sure. But it is one of those things too where, given that I hadn't seen her or whatever, it definitely like kept me guessing through the first part of the film. I had some theories as to who, maybe it might be, with the flask at hand, all that sort of stuff. Then, obviously towards the end, it kind of takes a turn and whatnot. But it's one of those films where, like you said, Davan, Lucas films, George Lucas, his shit might not connect you the most type deal, but it was very, I feel like, kind of Lucas-esque sort of payoff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How's this movie end, Murphy? Now that he's kind of led you there.
Well, yeah, basically, we had this scene where the scripts start getting mixed up,
Billy,
which I believe was Pat's favorite scene.
Let's go. That's Billy.
Billy was a
Abandoned by
enjoyable
Jim,
character.
my husband of 20 years, and recently disturbed by the news that Ellen, my loving daughter, is marrying Jim's illegitimate stepson. I find myself mired in a week-long depression. Tell me, Mom, what should I do?
Die, infidel. Die like a dog, writhing in pain from the horror known as the Curse of Nebuchadnezzar.
Well, that's not right.
That's not right.
Thanks, Mom. You always seem to know what's best.
That's good. We didn't write that. It's too creative.
You got that right.
Excuse me, I think someone's at the door.
That's why it's my favorite part. Christopher Lloyd doing the Tarzan fucking yell.
Christopher Lloyd acted his ass off in this film, man. Doing the Foley guy stuff, like hopping around everywhere.
He's a legend, but I think it was a bit of a waste.
So yeah, basically, the way this film starts to end is the cops are getting ever so closer on to Brian Benben's character Roger, and he starts to lead them on a bit of a chase. Before he does that, he kind of this is my favorite scene. Before he does the I guess you could say Tom and Jerry of the episode of the film. He basically plays this scene where he admits to being the murderer, even though he's not, because he needs to buy time. Oh wait, this is absolutely the wrong scene and wrong movie.
What's up with you, Murphy?
Listen, I'm just picking. Everything was loaded, okay? It's just picked the wrong one. Okay, I had things labeled. They were well in hand, and technology
Don't
just
worry,
doesn't want to be my
everybody.
friend. Okay,
I have a mail order co-host on the way. It's just slow because of the holidays. It'll be here.
We're gonna be leaving now, Mrs. Henderson. You can tell your crew it's finally over.
But
You're a writer, Henderson. Time for you to write something for me.
What?
A confession.
Confession. You know, Lucas
I
thought he was
killed
a
him.
genius with that line.
I
He
killed
would.
them all.
Why'd you do it?
He's just
Why?
see, for me, Lucas is a bad
You want to
script
know
writer.
why?
All
Because
his
I
dialogue
hate
feels
doing
like filler,
rewrites.
and none of it lacks personality.
All
Or
right.
none of it has personality.
Stand back, man. Give him room.
But look at all this personality.
Polishes gags. I mean, they always.
Oh, Brian
follow
Benben's
gags,
trying.
And they read them
but
wrong anyway.
He's doing the Ben thing. This is every episode of Dream On.
They thought they were better than me, but they weren't. They're just cockroaches. And what do you do with cockroaches? You squash them, squash them, squash them, squash them, squash them. And you think that's all? No. I've killed dozens. I've got names, dates, all the evidence you could possibly want.
Where?
Upstairs in my desk.
All right. All right. Take it easy. Take it easy.
No. Anyway, I like that scene because yeah, he it's probably his most passionate performance in the film, and then it becomes a Tom and Jerry episode where he proceeds to like run around and be chased by the cops and all these things. At this point, this was the moment of the film that it was dragging for me when he like has like the Chiquita banana costume on, and it's just like, oh, we got to get this scene on, and it became a little repetitive. It seemed like they were stretching it and stuff like that, but
The whole movie felt like that for me. Like all those little snippets we have of like the dancing, or they're doing like the dancing show, or like then they're like doing the dramatic acting show. Like all these different scenes we see of all these different radio shows should have been very entertaining in themselves, but they weren't. They just felt like filler. They just
a
felt
little bit. They were filler between like basically every other murder that was happening. Like, you had the murder of the narrator where he gets electrocuted and stuff like that. And then you like constantly have the story where like this bellhop guy is like running around trying to make sure everything's where it needs to go. He's clearly the hardest working dude in the whole building.
See, for me, like, I don't know if it comes from reading comics and they only have 22 pages usually, but like no line should be wasted in a movie for me. No, like, scene should be wasted. Everything should be necessary and entertaining and fulfill like something in the plot.
You're
But
right.
George
I'm
Lucas
not-
doesn't do that at all. Like,
Well, you're right, and here's a clear example of that in this plot. Okay, so this is the one thing that stood out to me. As you can see, Brian Benben here is writing basically the confession of who he thinks is the murderer, but he can't tell anybody. So his way of doing that is by writing it in the script, so that the performers get the truth out before he gets caught by the cops or he gets killed or whatever. It's a very convoluted way to get the truth out. But he is sitting on the edge of a windowsill in a very high building, very comfortably, with a typewriter in hand, just punching out numbers. And the cops figure out where he's at and they start chasing him. He gets the note to the bellhop, who proceeds to run it to production, and he's on the run the whole time. While this is happening, we slowly figure out that the actual murderer is Stephen Tobolowsky's character, Max Applewhite. He's the one that's been killing everybody because he used to work at an old radio station and his ideas were shut down. While Ben is running around trying to like save his own life, Max takes Penny hostage and they go to the roof. He follows the cops and stuff. They enter up this water tower, and he's like, I've seen the future, and it's television. So apparently Max has been working on television. This is supposed to be pre-TV era. And then while they're climbing up, it's revealed that Brian Benben's like afraid of heights, but he sacrifices himself to be, taken up to the end. Also, there was that scene where they locked all these rich producers and like donors in a room, and they couldn't get out to pee for the whole movie until this scene where they were let out. I thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, he basically is like, oh yeah, I don't like heights. Plane comes by, they kill Max's character, King Kong style. These two basically reconcile the relationship, which was they were separated at the beginning because one of the stars seemed like she was hitting on Roger. Penny took it wrong, but they ultimately made up in the end. They make out to the audience's applause because they were sitting on the on-air button. And that's how the movie ends, with a big kissy, lovey goodbye. That is, Radioland Murders in a nutshell.
That is Radioland Murders. Which performance would you hold up, Murphy?
I would have to either give it to Brian Benben and Roger Henderson, or potentially Christopher Lloyd Zoltan. Even though it's so brief with him, he's just putting it all into that character. He's doing his best Christopher Lloyd. But Brian Benben's Roger Henderson was a lot of fun, in my opinion. He makes the movie not the most likable lead, but he's acting his ass off, and that's what I appreciate about Brian Benben.
Yeah, I'll probably second that. Actually, though, I did find Mary Stuart Masterson kind of charming, but she doesn't have.
She was great too, actually. You know what? I changed my thought. Mary Stuart Masterson takes it because she actually was like the cornerstone of this whole thing. She literally kept the production of the show together while dealing with the murder and what her husband's bullshit. So yeah, actually, she takes the hold up performance.
Yeah, agreed.
Pat, what do you say?
All right.
I think so too, but also I feel like Christopher Lloyd, any movie that he's in, even if he has like not even an actual technical word, it's always memorable for sure. But yeah, I think Mary takes a cake for sure in this one for sure.
Yep. Setting aesthetic.
I mean,
I like the radio. I wanted to like it more. I should have liked it more. Like, that's so up my alley, the old radio. Like, I'm very nostalgic for like old radio.
Have you ever seen this movie before?
No.
Okay, so you both have never seen this movie before.
No.
Yeah, this is the first.
I was expecting to like it a lot more, and I was just like, damn. And then I found out it was George Lucas. I'm like, oh, that's why.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, I remember seeing it when I was a kid. So when I saw a chance to do radio films, I was like, I haven't seen this movie in so long. Yeah, it was as entertaining as I mostly remember, but it was also like, okay, there's a good 30 minutes of this film I could be without. But the setting and stuff like that, you feel like you're in the late 40s, early 50s radio theater. Like you're right there.
It's my favorite thing about this movie.
Yeah.
And it added something to our episode tonight, where we're at, like, these three movies are offering something very different about radio. Like,
yeah.
This is nice to have an old-timey sort of radio thing, even though not a great one for me. But it was nice to get that flavor.
Alrighty, so for the film Radioland Murmurs, Radioland Murders 1994. George Lucas has stated that the two main characters, Roger and Penny Henderson, are actually the parents of Richard Dreyfuss's character from American Graffiti in 1973, making this film a bit of a semi-prequel. Rosemary Clooney's final feature film appearance, which is, I believe George Clooney's mother. The final film appearance of George Burns as well, who had played the old stand-up comedian. What was it, like Mickey or something like that? Yeah, Milt Lackey.
Weird, they got an old stand-up comedian to play an old stand-up comedian.
Yeah, and it was his last performance too, which he wasn't even part of much, because I believe they had a stand-in do like 75% of the wide shots.
Well, he was 100 at the time, probably.
Yeah, pretty much. Anita Morris died shortly after the filming of this movie, and the film is dedicated to her memory. I believe Anita Morris is the red-headed Claudette Katzenbach. We also have Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz wrote the original screenplay in 1974 based on George Lucas's film treatment. The script contained references to old-time radio shows and the popular stars from the 1930s. However, when the film was produced decades later, Universal Pictures insisted the screenplay be written to remove any references which baby boomer cinema goers might not recognize. Lucas later regretted acquiescing to Universal's demands. So there could have been a bunch of like deep cuts regarding radio in this film that was ultimately taken out because Universal's like, that's not hip. Many of the sets, including the exterior of the broadcast building, many of the interior walls, and a biplane buzzing a single tower were computer generated. Working with a limited budget, production designer Gavin Bequette created more than 20 architecturally interrelated rooms in a beehive-like structure. Larger areas such as the exterior of the building and the transmission tower on the roof were created or augmented with digital mats added by visual effects supervisor Scott Squires at ILM. Which, impressive because they were pretty seamless considering the age, and I didn't even realize that they were until I read that note. I was like, oh wow, okay. After Davan's favorite film, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope from 1977, was released, the film was announced in 1978 as George Lucas' next movie. Steve Martin had approached to star as Roger Henderson with Cindy Williams as Penny Parker. So we could have had a different film with Steve Martin in the lead role. Penny's Mary Stuart Masterson's costume throughout the film, once she removes the jacket from the opening scenes, is a copy of the costume Katharine Hepburn wore in the final scene of Woman of the Year, complete with falling shoulder straps. All of Christopher Lloyd's scenes were filmed in one day, which
of course
explains all
pay
that.
His fee for 2 days.
Yeah. Composer Joel McNeely also provided the music for all the advertising jingles heard in the film, with lyrics by Jonathan Hales. Cinematography, David Tattersall. Edited by Paul Trejo. Music by Joel McNeely. Production company, Lucasfilms Limited. Release date of October 21st, 1994, with a runtime of 108 minutes. A budget of $15 million. And a box office of $1.3 million. So it was a bomb.
Rightfully so. I can't believe he spent $15 million making this. Like it's a kind of an ego thing too. Like a movie like this doesn't need all these big names. You don't need to spend all this money to make this movie.
I disagree.
I
think all those cameos were
because
fun.
It was a shallow, hollow movie.
It was a fun film with great cameos from some of 90's best B-list tier actors.
It's just cameos. That's all
So-
it is.
Did this film end up actually, obviously 14, 15 years down the line, be Lucas's next film past Star Wars? Or did he end up doing anything in the 80s or kind of like in between Star Wars and this?
I feel like the only thing he was really involved in between Star Wars and whatever was Indiana Jones, but that was more or less on the production ILM side. This is not one of his most revered films by a long shot. I can't think of any other George Lucas films outside of Star Wars, sadly.
Rewatchability. No, I'm not watching this movie ever again. It took me 3 tries to get through once.
It feels like the kind of movie you watch once and you tell people that you watched it, and the rare chance, the 1.0% chance that it comes up in conversation, but I largely feel the same.
You know what? I'm gonna agree. This is my second time watching the film. I saw an opportunity to rewatch a film that I thought I enjoyed to a certain degree, and I still enjoy to a certain degree. But I don't think I would go out of my way to watch this anytime soon.
Yeah.
Does it hold up? No.
I think it's a good encapsulation of the time period it was trying to pay homage to, but yeah, I don't
know if it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I wasn't around in the 30s or 40s, but yeah.
I'm going to say yes, the film holds up because it is an expert film, and you could say it's an expert class, in a stage production value. Like there's a lot of moving parts in this film.
Yeah.
Not just in like just the stage scenes, but also in like the production scenes, like where everyone's in the fishbowl. There's a bunch of action and stuff happening in the background, and that takes like actors hitting their marks and their cues and stuff to like make it seem like life is happening in constant movement all the time in every scene that's happened. And they really made the theater feel like it has layers, and there's like an underground and the wheeling and like the dude that gets crushed in it. And which character was that again? I think it was what was it? Yeah, Larry Miller's character Herman Katzenbach, who gets crushed in the gears of the stage moving and stuff like that. I believe that all of that stuff holds up. Is it some of the best performances or like the most convincing story? Man, and not out of everything we've watched, but I believe it's good enough that yes, it does hold up. This movie holds up in what it presents itself as.
Thinking about it in that aspect, now like kind of taking a step back, I think you're right, because I know like the whole like murder mystery sort of film or TV series has kind of come back in a really big way. I don't know if that's because of the popularity of crime podcasts or stuff like that, but I feel like
the Murdoch mysteries.
Yeah, I feel like this would hold a candle to some of the stuff that's come out recently, in the sense of like, you know, kind of like the ending coming out of like, you know, not really expecting it, maybe, even though you're kind of expecting it. Whereas I feel like a lot of the murder mystery stuff that comes out now, it's like, okay, well, like, I know what's going to kind of happen 10 or 15 minutes in. You know what I mean?
To be fair, I've seen this movie, but I completely forgot who the murderer was.
Yeah.
So watching it the second time, I was like, oh, okay. Can you honestly say you realized or thought, like, who was your initial, who do you think the murderer was before the actual reveal? Be honest. Either of you.
I was struggling to care, so I didn't really think about it.
That's fair.
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, when Brian Ben's character, like, you know, said that he was it, I was like, oh, I mean, he has the flat, like, okay, I can like believe this type deal. But it's one of those things where it's like, obviously he's trying to take the bullet or whatever for somebody, but I don't even know if I really suspected anyone that was like a part of the cast at first. I thought we were gonna all of a sudden get like some big Lucas-esque reveal in terms of like a big actor or something being like the eventual like murderer. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Towards the end.
Yes, me too. I thought there was gonna be a new character revealed in like the third act or whatever. I wasn't expecting any of the actual staff to be the murderer.
But the executive or producer, who's actually a little more evil than he already seems to be, is kind of not a new trope.
No.
Like that, no. So like George Lucas.
Very 94 trope.
Yeah.
Very George Lucas. All right, let's move over to Theater 3. We're making record time here, Murphy.
We're doing all right. We're doing all right. Normally we run like 3 hours on this show, so
it's like,
we've
my new
learned
format.
to trim the fat.
It turns out I'm a secret genius. We learned this earlier this week. So,
created a monster.
Yeah, we have created a monster. Theater 3. We're moving on to small town Ontario. Pontypool from 2008, starring one of my favorite actors, Stephen McHattie, Lisa Houle, Georgina Riley, and directed by Bruce McDonald. So if you have a trailer, hit it. It'll be enjoyable, I'm sure.
If technology plays well.
They're pulling two people out of a van! Oh my God! They're fighting!
What you are hearing is an actual radio broadcast. It is the only recording of the event.
Roadblocks preventing people from leaving and entering the area.
Everybody is under quarantine.
We still do not have an official version of these events, and it's very difficult at this moment to get a fix on what has happened.
Oh God! These people are trying to eat their way inside.
They cut into our signal.
Ken?
And their eyes. He's looking at me.
For your safety, please avoid contact with family members and refrain from the following. All terms of endearment. For greater safety, do not translate this message. Not translate.
Yeah, see, that
Just
was
listen
to me. All right, Pontypool. I'm gonna try to tone down my hyperbole, but this movie is like, it's up there for me. It's probably it's like this movie is like a perfect song or a perfect graphic novel. It's just it knows its themes. It doesn't need much. It's basically a 3-person play, because when the 4th person comes in, they've already kind of gotten rid of the other 3rd person, so it's just a new 3 people.
Yeah.
But oh god, it's so good. It's just, this is the only movie that's actually about radio of these 3 movies, really.
Yeah.
Where it's like a lot of the themes.
Sir, come on, that's just a bullshit statement.
No, one of them's like a silly comedy about struggling musicians. One of them's about a murder mystery. This one is actually
That's
about
a murder mystery in what?
Yes, I know the setting is in a radio station, but
And what has happened throughout the entire movie?
Anyway, it doesn't explore
A radio
anything.
performance is a
Halloween
radio
movie.
film. Don't say
Okay,
this
what
is the
theme-
only film
okay,
about radio.
What themes about radio did Radioland Murders explore, Murphy?
A radio show going on well within the time before there was TV. It explored the themes of script
that's a
reading and a
setting.
live performance.
That's
There was
not a theme.
there was script reading in a performance of radio, a live performance theater
Yes,
radio.
The setting was a radio station. I get that.
Yes.
But what themes about radio and the effect radio has and the power of radio? Did
It
that
was
movie-
entertainment. That's the effect that radio had. It was an entertaining show that was put on for the people to be entertaining. That's what radios
Patrick,
were
you know
used
what I'm
for.
saying? This
silently
movie
nod.
This movie explores. Like, this feels like radio. Like because it is. It's just a guy in a radio station booth, and that's the whole movie.
I agree.
So Grant Mazzy comes to work, and it's a snowstorm. It's played by Stephen. It's a fake McCaddy. For Star Trek people out there.
I think this was the
Yeah,
first. It's my first thing watching with him in it, at least knowingly type deal. And
did you ever see Life with Billy? Ugh, it's about one of the worst Nova Scotians who's ever lived. And, yeah,
but
Billy.
it's one of those things, especially within Canadian radio and whatnot. I mean, obviously there's lots of young people getting into it from time to time, but I feel like he is a perfectly believable member of being like that, 50, 60-year-old range radio host to
rural Ontario.
The rural Ontario, they've been doing this shit for years. It's literally kind of like their entire life type deal. I thought he
basement.
I thought he did that to a T for sure. But I eventually, initially seeing the trailer when Chris we're going to be focusing on these 3 movies. When I first seen the trailer, I initially thought it was some shit where people were calling into the radio station saying that they were doing
Frasier.
Fucked up shit that the radio host was kind of making them do type deal, and I'm very happy that it didn't end up being that way.
This movie's clever.
But it was one of those things too where after I watched it, one of the first things I looked up is if the producer or director or somebody who had a big part of this film was a French person who hated Ontario or hated English-speaking people. That's the actual thought I actually had at first.
Well, the Quebec military does show up later. We will say
that.
But Quebec military, what does that even mean? So yeah, the start of this movie, Mazzy, he gets to work, and the crazy lady comes to his window, But she goes away, so it's already a little weird. It sets the tone pretty nice. So then he comes down and he basically gets wind that he's getting fired.
Do you think he was infected at that point?
No.
No?
No.
I don't think so either.
No. It's his mazziness. Like, that's what she says. She's just like, I love your mazziness. I hired your mazziness. But like, so he gets on the radio and he's funny.
I have your favorite scene.
But he pretty quickly goes off the rails. because he's not, he's just disgruntled because they're like shutting down. Whatever.
Let's pull it up.
But oh, you got one here?
Constable Howard Ing of the Ontario Provincial Police. You know, our local pot growers are engaged in a deadly serious business. Deadly
serious.
booby traps, protecting their operations from prying eyes. Landmines have been found in backyards.
Grant.
They have vicious attack dogs and enough ammunition to arm a small country. Now, these are family neighborhoods, folks. If Junior throws a ball through one of their windows, he's just liable to trigger a death squad.
What are you doing?
My producer Sydney's talking in my ear. Luckily, you can't hear her.
Okay, nobody cares, Grant. About
Sydney says nobody cares. Maybe she's right.
closures after the billboard.
But
I need you to do
think
the
you do care, Region. Taking no prisoners. You know what that means? It means full disclosure, whatever the consequences.
Disclosure, Grant. School closures.
Really? Am I?
School closures,
am I
that's what
really?
people need.
This is Radio 660, The Beacon. Hey, you can't just cut me off like that.
Oh, that was some of it. But he also starts going on about how the cops are drunk. That was the main part of the scene. I was hoping you'd clip there, but that's good stuff there. Yeah. So she's just trying to get him to talk about school closures, and he's just going right off the rails, talking about drunk cops.
It's funny too to think, and like back when this movie came out in like 2008. It's probably a production on in 2007, just like the whole like kind of red tape around around weed. It was like, at least, because I'm born in 1990, so 2008 would have been my last year of high school. I remember being in high school and people having this like mentality about weed, marijuana, whatever you call it, of like, oh, you smoke weed? You're a burnout. You're going to do nothing in your life. Whereas now, obviously where now it's been legal for like over 5 years at this point, and the sky has not fallen in the way that so many people predicted. I feel like what people thought was going to happen with weed being legalized and the advertisement, that's actually what happened with sports betting when it was legalized. When anytime you're watching a sporting event, at least 2/3 of the commercials are for all these different fucking betting companies. And all the intermission segments are about like, oh, well, going into the second period, here's like the over-under, or like, here's the odds on like who's going to win the rest of the game and shit. I feel like that's kind of what people thought weed was going to be when it was legalized, and that whole like aura and kind of like, like red tape behind it. Whereas like now it's been legalized for 5 years. We haven't had instances of kids going into pot shops and buying edibles or whatever of those people who were naysayers.
No, but we have had mass convoys, so
I'm still waiting for the era of like Americanized weed commercials where you can get, Hulk Bubba Green marijuana, but it might give you the side effects of sleepy, hungry, and probably some extra munchies. Depends on how much you smoke, as opposed to like the current American drug commercials are like, if you take Flovane 5000, your skin will probably melt off, but you're going to be able to breathe easier.
Risks may include heart disease, rectal bleeding.
So they getting regular call-ins from their like weather guy. They're like eye in the sky, who's has this helicopter sound, but it turns out he's just a dude sitting on like a cliffside looking down at the town. Like,
was it Ken?
And it turns out he's like a pedophile, and the producer won't let her kids near him. So it's like
that's
it's
actually
a very,
my favorite.
The way. Oh, do you have it there? Do you?
I do have that scene. I can pull that up real quick. You keep talking.
You can pull that up. All right. Yeah. So the way they portray a small town is very perfect in this movie. Like, this is a freaking perfect movie. Like, because it's like all these people who, like, if you lived in a bigger place, you would never talk to these people. But that's not how it works in small towns. When you live in a small town, you're forced to deal with people you'd otherwise avoid. And like, there's a lot of that in this too. God, this movie's good. Yeah, see Murphy's. This is a great scene.
That's
Murphy
it. He's
picked,
gone.
too.
This is what he is now. He's just a
Okay,
crude radio
pause
star.
this actually,
He's
Murphy.
seeking-
Let me pause this. This is a little farther ahead than I realized.
It is a
So
bit.
one sec,
There's a bit. Pat and I's favorite
So-
scenes are pretty much in the last half. So you get a yada yada.
So the old Arnie Pie in the Sky guy starts to say, how
Not
things
actually
are
in the
being
sky.
weird. Not actually in the sky, but he's like, people are going crazy and blah blah blah, and they're like, well, try to get to safety and that sort of thing.
Well, no, he's
And then-
sitting in a van on a hill and
Yeah,
he's
he's
watching
sitting on a van on a
basically
hill. People eat
like
each other.
Walmart
Like-
being run over by chaos. You know,
Yeah,
which is
like people are eating each other and stuff. And he's just like, "Oh my god!" And they're just like, "Go find safety." And like, but then they realize that their third, like, person in the studio, not the producer or Grant Mazzy, but they're like kind of intern or whatever. is
Who
starting
had
to
been
actually
in,
too.
who had been on, who had done those
Georgina
things,
Riley?
those
Yeah,
things
Georgina
that
Riley.
a tour of duty in Afghanistan.
Right, yes.
Yes.
She's a war hero. That's right. That was a
Yeah.
big play on in the story. She's like, she's back from Afghanistan. Pontypool's own war hero. Laurel Ann Drummond.
Yeah, Laurel Ann. So she gets
The whole
crazy,
time-
starts puking blood up onto the glass and everything. It's really gross.
Well, it's not
So
that she's
they're like,
puking,
okay.
puking blood on. She's basically
Well, she's
smashing her face into the
Yeah.
in the glass to
Yeah.
she gets to the point where she's spitting up blood. But the whole time I'm watching this movie, I kept thinking she was the girl from Scary Movie, and I couldn't.
Anna
like,
Faris.
not- Anna Faris.
said the
yeah.
exact same thing to my wife when we were watching this. I was like, she
guess there's
gets
a
Anna
similar-
Faris vibes for sure.
I thought it was honestly her, and it wasn't her. That poor
Yeah.
girl. She must have a struggling acting career.
So that happens. So they realize stuff really is going down, and there's like weird zombie shit happening. But then out of nowhere, a guy comes bursting into the studio, and it's like the doctor who actually has all the information they need.
Sneaks
And
through the back
that-
window in the storage
Yeah,
locker.
yeah. And he's quite the character. Like you don't know how to take what he's saying. You're like, is this guy full of shit, or should I believe what he's saying? Because he's just so erratic, and he's like, he doesn't explain himself very well. So he's a very interesting character. The way they like kind of keep this like uncertainty and tension in this movie is very well done. But that kind of brings us to your clip here, Murphy, because they're still again talking to old Arnie Pie in the sky.
It's gone crazy here. Start saying the line.
I think it's time to
That
say
hooked him.
goodbye, Grant, to our man in the sunshine chopper.
All right. Goodbye, Ken. Goodbye from all of us. Everyone listening.
Oh, Ken's infected.
I hope you can hear me, Ken.
I found the word that got him hooked.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a sec.
He's
But it's
gone.
so creative what they're doing here.
Well, I mean, he's gone somewhere.
I'm so sorry, Sidney. Ken was, he was a real good friend of yours, wasn't he?
No, he wasn't a friend. Ken Loney was a pedophile. I mean, not really a pedophile. We just never let our kids go anywhere near him.
So a pedophile.
It's
But
just-
anyway.
It's just I've known him 17 years. It's just such a long, long time.
The look Mazzy gives.
His face, I know, man. He's so good, man. But the scene leading up to that's really tense too. Like the earlier bits of that scene too, where like they're talking to our old Arnie Pie there, and the people are chasing him. He's trying to walk. He's still trying to do his job. He's like trying to get descriptions for them and stuff, and it's pretty tense and scary stuff. But yeah, that's a great scene.
I like the doctor. Hang on, it's just I like the doctor showing up in the scene because you know he really starts to explain what's going on relative to the virus. He starts he's like, I've seen examples of this, and this is when the intern starts bashing her head against the window. He's like, if she hears us, she's gonna like come after us and eat us. They get super hyper focused, and they start pinpointing down that the disease is spread through the English human language.
Through language. It's like
Yeah,
but
through
this
language.
could be a Star Trek episode. That's why I love
It
this.
really
This is
could,
genius.
yeah.
Like a language virus. It's just such a creative concept. Could have been Outer Limits, could have been Twilight Zone, could have been Star Trek, but it's in this, and goddamn am I glad it was. So yeah, it's just a great concept. The performances are fantastic. As Murphy knows, I love bottle episodes. I love movies that just happen in one place, and the script and the performances are just off the charts good. That's what makes a movie for me usually. So it gets crazy. They eventually do leave the booth because the doctor starts to get weird.
Yeah, they escape around the radio station a bit. They get to the second floor. They think the doctor's infected because he keeps being weird, but in reality, he's just speaking his native tongue. He's like, "Oh, if I don't speak English, I'm perfectly fine," and he's trying to communicate to them. But he's like, "This weirdo's speaking Arab. I can't. I'm gonna freak out. He's gonna kill us. He's gonna eat us." And they get freaked out.
Language.
And then he ends up, pulling he's like, all right, it's cool. I'm going to go sacrifice myself. And he leads the zombies out of the room and starts playing a bunch of sound. And he starts yelling and they chase him. And it leads Roger and Mary to be, or not, I'm saying the wrong names. Grant Mazzy and Cindy Breyer to be locked in the storage closet for what seems like a couple days. Right?
Yeah.
It seemed like.
Really? I don't know. I felt it was a couple hours, but
it felt like at least
it had to
a
be
day
couple
or
days
two.
because a lot of things happened and kind of mobilized. But I think we skipped past the fact that the BBC calls them. That's when you start to realize time you start to realize that things are actually real. It's before they get the call from Arnie Pye, and he's just like, "Oh my god!" It's just BBC calls, just so what's going on there in Pontypool? And they don't know anything. So that scene is just Grant Mazzy bullshitting and making shit up because
he's live on. He's live on air. He's like, "The fuck! I'm trying to do a show right now too. What the fuck am I doing right now?"
Yeah, he's like, "Well, we don't really know what's going on. The military is working on it, I guess." And it's a pretty awkward and funny scene.
Yeah.
But he tries to plays it off. He's just like, "Oh yeah, we're getting a call from our our associates,
colleagues,
our colleagues over at the BBC, small town Ontario there." But
are people eating flesh over there, Mazzy?
Well, we don't know.
Are they?
Ken or whatever his buddy's name was.
We have no confirmation on that.
You seem to know more than us, which they did. The BBC guy was telling them what's going on. He's like, "Because we heard it's this," and it's like Quebec revolutionaries or something like that. He's just like, "It's a Quebec separatists." He's like, "Well, we don't know." We don't know if it's just Quebec separatists eating people or not. There, BBC.
This could be a really good sale on Costco.
But it's so funny. But then, crazy shit happens. They realize that the army's going to come and probably waste the whole town just to contain the virus, is what they're alluding towards. And it just ends with, for me, the perfect end to a perfect movie, where it's Mazzy just does this beautiful speech.
Well, actually, hang on.
He's about to die. Okay. Oh,
this is Pat's favorite scene, actually, surprisingly enough. So this is a perfect lead up to this.
It defeats the purpose.
Okay, here we go.
Sydney Brass, stop the broadcast. The man speaking is sick.
The sky is a person.
Laughter is walking.
He's trying to screw with the
is
virus.
Crowded.
Friends are verbs. Teeth
Sounds like
are entering.
Wrong, but I don't think we're saving the world with shitty haiku.
Okay, for Christ's sake, everybody stay quick. Help me out here. Cling! Cling!
Intake!
Trespass.
Sniper.
Swimming.
Tomorrow.
Fidelity.
Monologue.
Savage.
Sausage.
Tomorrow.
Money.
Ceiling.
I don't. Rhinoceros.
Laughter.
Shit. They're just shooting people, Grant. They're just killing people.
This movie's intense.
Stop killing people. You gotta stop killing people. You gotta stop. You gotta stop. 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 Just
listen.
Seek out the
Alright,
works
yeah.
of Stephen McHattie. He's one of the greats, man. You've actually he's a small role in 300. If you ever saw that movie, I'm pretty sure he's in that.
I have seen 300. I can't
No,
remember.
not 300. No, he's in one of those movies where everyone's wearing togas. Anyway, one of the big ones. But
yeah. So basically, the whole point of that scene was just they were trying to they figured out that the cure to the virus is to not focus on the word that turns you into a maniac that wants you to eat people's faces. And if you can counteract that, say the word is prison, but if you can think of, instead of prison, blue skies is the word for prison, then you break yourself free of the hypnotic state. And that's what they try to
he's like peanut butter means chess. And
that whole scene though,
just mess up your words.
That whole scene felt like a dating game. First word that comes to mind when I say this, and then these two are playing off. And that was one of the things about this film that stood out to me that I wasn't totally behind, was this sort of will they, won't they between Grant and Sydney. I wasn't buying their chemistry at all.
I don't think it was that.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's that, but for me, it was one of those things that hindered me in finding full I guess you could say not enjoyment, but getting fully into the film. It was one of those things I don't want to see these two people kiss. I don't want to see these two people become a relationship. But
it wasn't a relationship. It was just two people who know they were gonna die, and there's been a ton of movies where people know they're gonna die, so they make out or bang because they know it's
exactly. But that being said, even though it was that, I didn't want to be that, and it sort of kept pulling
I didn't
me out
need
of
that
the film.
either.
Yeah, but
it,
you know
it
what's
didn't
hilarious?
Really take me out of it, but it was my least favorite part. I would agree with you.
Yeah, the hilarious part about that is that these two people are actually married in real life.
Oh, really?
That's Stephen McHattie's wife?
Yes, Stephen McHattie's wife.
Wow. Well, no wonder they had so much chemistry. That's amazing.
And when I learned that, I was like, okay, this colors the movie a little differently for me. And I don't know, I was finding myself enjoying it. But yeah, not to distract you, but these two basically.
We get to the end, and he just has a beautiful speech right before they're going to get blown to smithereens by Quebec, I guess.
The dangerous Quebec military.
Armed with the cheese curds cavalry coming for you.
And it's echoing one of the great themes about radio, and why I say this is a radio movie. This movie is all about the power of the human voice and the comfort that people can take in that. You don't even need to see Grant Mazzy's face. You don't need to know who he is, but people who listen to him take comfort in his voice. So that's what he's trying to tell these people. He's just I'm still here. He's this isn't the end of the world. This is just the end of today. And today is just another. It was a beautiful speech, man. It was just a beautiful speech to a beautiful end to a perfect movie. And then it's they don't give you that last second to know whether they get killed, but it's pretty heavily implied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, here we've gotten to the ending of the film, and this is what I want to ask you, gentlemen. Were you patient enough to watch after credits? Because there was an after the credits scene.
Oh, there was an after the credits scene. Yes, but I forget now. Remind me.
Okay. So the after the credits scene is just this black and white scene of Mazzy and Sydney sitting at a bar, and Mazzy looks like some crazy hitman, and Sydney's just his girl on the arm, and they're saying some poetic shit, and then it ends. And from my understanding, this leads to the film that Bruce McDonald had filmed after this, and it was like a lead into that. So it's potentially that this is a part of a trilogy of stories. But in my theory, in my head, they died. They died by Quebec bombing.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
But you're right. I remember that after credit scene. But you're right. It seems like something else.
I think what happens is they die via Quebec bombing, but they end up in a different reality because they've died, and they end up living the story of this new reality they're in, which ties back into the back. I don't know. Either way, I think I need to watch this film to really grasp the full onion that is the storyline of Pontypool.
Yep. Performance, would you hold up? It's got to be Stephen McHattie. It's one of the
100%.
great performances. It's so good.
100%.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The movie is just him talking, but he's so interesting. He plays such a good radio voice too. Like if that guy was a radio host, you'd listen to him because he's got so much
100%.
personality and character.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Plus, he tells you when the cops are drunk.
Yep.
Setting aesthetic, perfect for what it was. It looked like a basement church radio station. And
I
the snowstorm
definitely. Yeah, I was
intimidating.
gonna say definitely fits the format too, like we seen in the trailer, which I didn't realize until afterwards. It's an IFC film, so definitely fits the IFC sort of vibe at the time back in the late 2000s. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. One setting, warehouse, large thing that they use from different multiple angles because screw paying for 5 locations when you can pay for one.
100%.
Make it work, man. That's what I say. All right, hit us. You got any morsels for us for this little gem there, Murphy?
Just a handful. Just a
All right.
handful.
Well, let's hear it.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Surprise, motherfucker! There'll be no more. Yeah.
Pontypool 2008's movie morsels. Pontypool was produced as both a motion picture and as a radio play. Both versions of
It was a novel,
Pontypool
too.
were influenced by Orson Welles' infamous radio production of The War of the Worlds. The radio play was broadcast on the BBC Arts and Culture section of their World Service website, and it is approximately 58 minutes long as opposed to the film's runtime of 95 minutes.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I think that would be pretty cool to listen to, honestly. Bruce McDonald, the director of the film, has said that the victims of the virus are called conversationalists as opposed to zombies. In describing the stages of the virus, McDonald said there are 3 stages to the virus. The first stage is you might begin to repeat a word. Something gets stuck.
Simple.
And usually
It's simple.
Yeah. And usually it's words that are terms of endearment like sweetheart or honey. The second stage is your language
Easily
becomes
spread.
scrambled and you can't express yourself properly. The third stage is that you become so distraught at your condition that the only way out of the situation you feel as an infected person is to try and chew your way through the mouth of another person.
That's it's crazy. Like that's so friggin' scary, though, man. That's like
It's an interesting take
This
on the
was
zombie
that
virus.
everyone was freaking out how smart they thought this cordyceps fungi thing is in that Last of Us show, which was pretty good, but it's an easy leap to make from what a cordyceps fungi does.
It's based in reality.
I found yeah, more so. I found this a little more clever and a little more science fiction-y. Like this is just when I learned about what cordyceps fungi were like when I was a kid, I thought that immediately. I'm like, oh my god, what if they infected humans? It's the immediate thing you think when you learn about cordyceps fungi. So it's not like a clever idea. This is a clever idea. I never would have thought of a virus spread by language, and then the details and depth they give it. It's just really freaking smart. I kind of want to read the novel now. I mean, it's probably the same. I doubt there's much difference, but
you never know.
Yeah.
Tony Burgess is the film's writer and the author of the novel in which the film is based. Pontypool Changes Everything. Make a brief cameo in the film as the male singer of Lawrence and the Arabians.
Oh, they were hilarious, man. When Mazzy has to sit there and listen to Lawrence and them sing. God, it's funny. Because they already know shit's hitting the fan at that point. He's like, you really got to make me sit here and listen to these people when like shit's going down. Like
his character is credited as Tony Lawrence. In fact, at the end of the scene where the singers have performed for the Muse Grant Mazzy himself actually refers to Burgess' character as Tony Burgess. So yeah, the author of the film was in that scene. I found that scene interesting because there was one girl who was just like covered in brown face, and you're like, really? Wow, that's a good choice.
Really? Jesus.
She's not only is it there a girl that's covered in brown face, but it's the girl that Mazzy and what's her face Sydney kill in the hallway when they're trying to escape the chaos, and they like boot stomp a little girl.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, that's
it's pretty crazy.
Like all the films we watch are just like, oh, they're killing kids, and I'm like, he loves this film. This scene in particular. Do you enjoy this scene, Davan? Where they boot stomp a little girl?
Zombies.
It's okay. It's zombies though. It's okay.
Yeah.
Apparently, zombies you can cure. If they had just spoke to the little girl and convinced her that the word sky was actually dirt, she would have been fine.
Coulda, shoulda,
woulda. The film stars Stephen McHattie and Lisa Hooley, who are coincidentally married in real life. One scene features Neil Stephenson's novel Snow Crash, a book featuring an earworm or a mimetic virus that transfers itself through verbal information. So it's not exactly an original idea. Neil Stephenson had it in the novel Snow Crash. I'm a big Neil Stephenson fan.
I might have read that one.
Oh yeah, he's got a book called. I'm not going to try and think of it because I'm a little too drunk to remember. At approximately 36 minutes in the movie, the character of Ken reports on a group of infected taking 2 people from a van and biting them. The sound of the victim screaming is partially taken from the famous chest-bursting scene from the film Alien in 1979. You can even hear the distinct hissing sound of the John Hurt's character's chest spurts blood from the first time. Writer Tony Burgess and director Bruce McDonald are intending to include more exposition for 2 planned sequels. The second and third films in the series were actually conceived before the first one. The Pontypool trilogy consists of 3 related works: a novel, a film, and a stage play. Cinematography by Miroslav Basak. I brutalized that name, I'm sorry.
Half of the show is just Murphy butchering names.
Edited by Jeremiah Muntz, music by Claude Foisy, production companies Pointy Up Pictures and Shadow Shows, distributed by Maple Pictures. Release date September 6, 2008 at the Toronto International Film Festival, with an international release date of March 6, 2009. Runtime 96 minutes, a budget of $1.5 million, and a box office of $32,118. It is the lowest grossing film out of the 3 we watched today.
Yeah, it didn't get released in any theaters. It certainly didn't play in this province. Yeah, so it's like that's the problem.
Well, they played at international film festivals.
Yeah, but film festivals don't make you money.
It's true. Yeah, it costs you money. If anything.
It's crazy.
Canadian films don't get released in Canadian theaters, and that's just an unfortunate fact. Even when they're great like this one.
Yeah, 100%.
It's sad, but I bet you this movie. I mean, this movie gets rave reviews. Like, all you have to do is watch it and see how great it is. Like, it's unfortunate it didn't make money, but good movies often don't. But it's usually for reasons like that, where it's just like you don't release it in any theaters.
Yeah,
how's it gonna make any money?
Yeah, for sure.
But does it? Rewatchability? Well, I've certainly seen this movie more than once, and I'm definitely going to watch it again. It's maybe my favorite zombie movie, maybe a top 3 movie for me. Like, I friggin' love this movie. It's certainly a top 3 that we've covered on this show.
His other top 3 are The Man from Earth and Primer, which are also
nice.
Well, Primer's not
and Dr. Strangelove.
Nice.
Okay, yeah.
I love Dr. Strangelove.
That's right. Dr. Strangelove's good stuff. Anyway, my rewatchability for this film, probably not. I would be interested in seeing a stage play of this, though. I think that would be I would like to see how they do that. And I would probably be interested.
Stephen McHattie would be interesting too.
I would also be interested to see if there's any if they do follow up with sequel films. That sequel news that I read was, it seemed like it was just sort of like what they were planning at the time. Now it's almost like 15
Sounds
years
like that's
later.
what the stage play is. It sounds like the stage play is the sequel.
Because it sounds like it was also a novel that came out back
Yeah, it
in
was a novel.
1995, which I did not know about until I put it in the Google machine before this episode type deal, which kind of surprised me.
I'd read the novel too. I think I'd be more interested in a novel and a play than like rewatching this film. Like I was having fun with it, but there were moments where I was just like, okay, you know, like I had my moments.
Murphy doesn't like it when you spend too long in one room. That's why he just bashed the man from Earth. But anyway.
No, there's many reasons why I bashed the man from Earth, and you can watch that on our previous episode.
It's true. On time travel. Does it hold up? Yeah, it's like a great Star Trek episode mixed with a great zombie movie with just fantastic performances. Not many. There's not many characters, but great performances. Even Arnie Pie in the Sky on the phone was really good.
Yeah.
That scene was tense. Like you came in on your favorite scene after that, but when like that scene where he's like getting overcome by the zombies is terrifying, man.
I agree.
That's one of the keys to making things scary in scary movies, which is why scary movies often aren't scary these days. Is it's what you don't see that's scary. In scary movies, horror movies now, you see everything because it's more about shocking you with gore and stuff. It's what you don't see that's scary because your mind has to fill in the blanks.
For sure. And I think that for me, that's like, not that I'm not going to say that like I'm a huge fan of the horror genre, but I feel like a lot of what's happened in like the last 10 to 15 years is like, this isn't a scary movie. This is straight up just like gore porn happening. You know what I mean? Like this doesn't like scare me. It's just like, like that's fucking disgusting. Why would I want to watch that or see that type deal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is an important kind of horror movie in amongst all that too in 2008. It's important to show people you can how to actually be scary.
I would say yes. For me, yes, this movie does hold up. It is an expert class in a small 3-person play. It is an expert class in utilizing one location, an expert class in acting, really good writing, and really good concept. Even though there were moments where I was just like, okay, I'm finding myself a little bored, but like ultimately I did enjoy the film. I enjoyed what it was presented. I'm interested to see if there is more from this universe and how they expand it, but ultimately,
me too. But I kind of don't want more. Like for me,
that's the thing too.
I want them to be
don't
dead
want more
because to me, this is like a perfect song or a perfect graphic novel. I don't want anything more. I want them to be dead, so then you don't have to wonder.
Well, that's the thing. I think the whole reason why they even enticed the idea of sequels is because it's 2008. Franchises were kicking off left, right, and center, and these guys were like, "Well, we've got a franchise here," and it's like, you don't need one, and you don't really need to have a franchise. This could be perfectly fine in a bubble of itself. And I think through the years they've realized that, and that's why they haven't. Pursued actual sequels to this film, and they probably went with their crazy Sin City version of a film that followed this and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think they managed to capture lightning in a bottle, and that is what Pontypool is. It definitely holds up, in my opinion.
It's like when Adam told me there was a sequel to Man from Earth, and I was like, no. It's like, no, I don't. Like,
I still need. I should watch that just to see if it makes the first one. No, not even.
No, I don't want to see it, unless it comes up on this podcast. Radio movie rankings. All right, let's rank our radio movies, fellas. For me, it's Pontypool, Airheads, Radioland Murders.
For me, it's got to be Airheads, Pontypool, then Radioland Murders.
I agree with Chris. Airheads, Pontypool, and then Radioland Murders for sure.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with having a couple of A movies in there. So I got their thing here to share.
Technology, baby.
Yeah.
lightning quick.
So there we have our movies that we've covered so far. We've got our A movies, our B movies, and our C movies. Still have the most A movies in the least amount of C movies. So, you know, at least with what we're watching, there's more good movies than bad. Yeah, we got Airheads and Pontypool. Oh, how did it get moved up there? But anyway, Pontypool, it's still there in the A list. It's just a bit there for some reason. Oh, there it goes. All right. Anyway, yep, Airheads, Pontypool, and we have a B movie, Radioland Murders. You know, in maybe like C movies clothing. I don't know. But
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
All right. Well, with that, I want to thank Patrick for spending some time with us this evening to talk about these films. Obviously, with your 13 years of radio experience, I had to pick you for this. I'm glad you came in with the choices you did.
Thanks.
I wanted to know your final thoughts on the films we watched, and also if you wouldn't mind telling the fine folks that be few that watch this or listen to this where they can find more of your content.
Well, all three of these films are definitely awesome in their own right, for sure. I definitely love and appreciate all of them. As far as where people can check out all of my stuff and iDoby Radio as a whole, you just head over to idobi.com. We got a bunch of awesome, music and tour news articles, some editorials, and then basically all the podcasts and stuff, all the shows that air on our station. The shows that I host, Rock the Walls, you can catch Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time over on iDobi Howl, our heavy music station, and then Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time over on iDobi Radio. And check out iDobi Howl, our heavy music station. Any metal, hardcore, any heavy music that you've ever said, I wish this shit was played on the radio in a station that I could listen to, we are basically that station. So if you're into that sort of shit, definitely go and check that out. And at iDobi Howl over on all the socials if you want to check that out. And just thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I definitely as well through the reschedules and kind of the hoops and whatnot and some of my schedule restrictions. I really appreciate it for you guys for sure.
Thank you so much for taking the time with us, man. I'm glad we could hang out like this and talk some films. Davan, did you have a final take for us at all?
Look, the final take here is the thing that I've always loved about radio, and the thing that you can gather at least a little bit in all three of these films, and that is the power of the human voice. And the farther that voice carries, the more power it has. Like Grant Mazzy could have saved the world if he wasn't in small town radio. You know?
For sure.
But that's the beauty of radio. And for me, what got me into podcasting is, to me, it's the return of radio. Radio is back, whether it's podcasts or satellite radio or internet radio, just getting away from the restrictions.
Yeah,
just being able to be authentically yourself and present that to people and what your interests are. It's a golden time in the return of radio, so it's not called that anymore.
Agreed, 100%.
And it's not the end of the world; it's just the end of the day.
So, we're part of a United Federation of podcasts where we talk about many different subjects and many different podcasts, including the likes of Star Trek, where we got Star Trek coverage at Live Long and Podcasts, from reviews, shows, even to live radio theater, and a deep dive into the finer things of Star Trek, including that of Locutors and Trek, where we have some interviews from very people of
We're having discussions.
Discussions.
Biology with Mohammed Noor, discussion metaphysics with Richard Hanley, and we're discussing astrophysics with Aaron McDonald coming up here in early January.
Speaking of discussions, Davan likes to discuss X-rated X-Men, the X-Men animated review show where they talk all things X-Men with his co-host Andrè, Myette, who's also the host of Graphic Histories podcast, an interview show discussing with artists their lives and their things and their centers and their bases.
It's the WTF, if you're familiar with that popular podcast by Mark Maron of the graphics arts world. If you like
UFP,
comics,
if you will.
You like WTF, this is the show for you.
Yeah, check out Graphics History. Andrè is a great host. We also have the Super Mater Brothers podcast, which discovers and discusses all things in reality TV like Survivors and Big Brother and shows like that. And we also have the old.
We do our Mary
Eamon.
Mater Marvel Society over there as well. We discuss some Marvel over there.
If you love,
shout out to Big Brother, one of the final 3 on this season's Big Brother US was actually a fellow Adobe Radio co-host of mine, Bowie Jean. She's one of the co-hosts of Babes Behind the Beats. Wednesdays on the season, so it was really cool to see her on it for sure.
Well, you know what? I think we'll pass this information along to Dave and Jaemeel. Maybe she'd be down for a little interview to discuss her experience on Big Brother. I think those guys would be super into that. Maybe we can make that happen. That'd be really cool. Speaking of other things, we got Eamon on Track with Eamon Mater, where he discusses albums of his guest choice and possibly his choice. I don't know when the next episode is, but hopefully it'll be with Andrè and Myette from Graphic History. We also got Trivial Debates. If you ever liked movie fights, you might like Trivial Debates. We've been having themed episodes. Our recent episode was a Transformers themed episode with host Jody Simpson. And
go listen to it, even if you don't like Transformers. I don't care.
It was entertaining.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, it was a good time. Our next episode will hopefully be Disney based. And we also have the Hellbound podcast with Alex Blackburn and Michael Chan, where they discuss all things horror movies and horror movie podcasts over at the Hellbound podcast. So yeah, that's our little lineup of podcasts at the United Federation of Podcasts. Take a drink for every time I said podcast. You're going to be slammed.
Hell yeah.
We're going to be doing some episodes. On the next episode, we're going to be talking video games, Double Dragon, the Super Mario Brothers films from the 90s, and the Super Mario Brothers film from 2023 with our guest host, Jason R. Phillips. Normally, we would play Coming Attractions, but this is an episode where we change things up. If you want to see the trailers for those episodes, you'll get to join us on the next episode. We'll discuss them as we discuss the movie. So with all that being said, thank you for joining us. And as always, enjoy the movies.